Very quick things because I want to show you what's out there on our desks and what we're doing. The last thing that we're completing right now is we began in 2001 on this particular day. It was a day that everyone thought was a beautiful day, and it ended up like this, rather tragic. It was perhaps one of the most psychologically traumatic days that many of us have experienced in our lifetime. And when these buildings disappeared, they very quickly cleaned up the site and began a process of rebuilding. They asked a number of architects to participate, including us, in the rebuilding, and we said no several times. We just didn't feel appropriate, especially at that time. We thought New Yorkers should be the ones to sort of rebuild this site. We just felt out of touch. In the end, we agreed, after many sort of proposals towards us, that this one project in particular, a project to build a cultural center or museum on the World Trade Center site, was something that would be intriguing and represent a kind of rebuilding that we thought was powerful, where culture and tragedy could sort of interact with one another. As we took the competition, we didn't again think we would win. We sent off our information, and somehow third time we won, and it was against perhaps most of the world's great architects at the time. And it was a very challenging project for us, very, again, psychologically demanding. These are bicycles that were recovered from the site. Their owners are now dead. The geopolitical issues that are connected with that site continue and remain active and with us today, and how we're negotiating those challenges is still a part of who we are and will be a part of who we are during our lifetimes. Our particular project is the smallest project to be built there. It's rather diminutive here, surrounded by some rather giant structures. Yet our building is the only one that actually sits on the memorial site itself, which is why we thought it was challenging and important for us. Many people felt that we could bring an outside perspective to the site that would be healthy, so we set about creating a building that really, in many ways, was dedicated to the present life and to creating an optimistic and healing gesture there alongside the memorials themselves, which are very much dedicated to the past, to those that died. And the commercial buildings dedicated to the future, commerce and the optimism of commerce. This is a rendering by one of the developers, Larry Silverstein. We didn't make the rendering, but there's our building sitting directly adjacent the original footprints of the north and south towers where the memorial is now residing. And that's surrounded by a park area, which is planted with different types of trees that actually, some of them we're coming from Pennsylvania and New Jersey area. This is a very rough section. Our building is part of a museum that's dedicated to the events of 11th of September, before, during, and after. These two forms that you see here are the original steel columns that were salvaged from the Yamasaki building. There's a family room in the building. It leads down to a 110,000 square foot museum space. It's actually designed by another architect, so there are two of us having to work together on the same building. It's an enormously complex site. Most of us, when we think about ownership and owning land, we often think in plan. You know, this is my site and that's your site. In New York City, not only are there divisions of ownership in plan, there are also divisions of ownership in section. So each of the layers of this site is owned by a different authority with a different client base, and we were on top. So all of our loads had to filter through 5 or 6 different architects' work, including Calatrava, who was pushing his columns around quite a bit. So we had an enormous kind of challenge to be the ultimate arbiters of coordination on the site. This gives you some of the interesting sort of overlays of different constructions. I thought to bring you this couple of images from the site. These are about a month old. It's really enormously complex, and to give you an idea of the scale, this is about 14 feet deep, that beam right there, so it's huge, and it's going across several other projects below the ground. This is our building here, and there's a kind of atrium with, if you look very closely, you can see the 2 steel columns which were placed in the building last year. It's completed in the surface with a mirrored and semi-matte surface of stainless steel that reflects the light around it and actually produces light. It's a kind of an effervescent building that changes as you move around the building. Where that material comes to the ground, you're actually able to go up and you'll see yourself projected into the building, but not a cleared, mirrored surface that you're looking into, but kind of a ghostly image of yourself projected onto the building. And here's the first prototypes, and these are actually here. The prototypes were tested here in Pennsylvania, just outside of Harrisburg. There's some rather beautiful surfaces that you can see the way it takes a cloud, for example, and sort of stretches it along this arc in the skin itself. So I think that you'll see the building in a rather kinetic way. This is returning the original columns to the site last year, 9 years after the tragedies occurred. And here's a view of those columns in the space and some recent images. So it is actually being built. Many people, and when we work on these projects that take a long time, everybody always comes up to us and says, wow, it's too bad that project of yours never got built. And I'm sort of in the middle of sweating blood to get it finished because it sort of falls out of the media for a while. But it actually will be open this year on the 11th of September, 2011, 10 years after the anniversary of the tragedy. So it will be seen for the first time to the public. Its interior won't be finished for another year, but certainly you'll be able to see progress there at the site. Some things